This is a Hog Sports Network podcast. You're listening to the Hogs Illustrated Sports Club podcast. Here's your host, Chip Souza of the Hogs Sports Network.
This is Chip Souza with the Hogs Sports Network, and we're at the Hogs Illustrated Sports Club luncheon today, where Dr. Fitz Hill will be the guest speaker. We also recognize several outstanding prep athletes and program this week. Our prep rally athlete of the week is DJ Dara of Rogers High. The Mounties are off to a 3-0 start, and I spoke with DJ before today's luncheon. I'm talking with DJ Dara, the linebacker for the undefeated Rogers Mounties. There you go, undefeated. How's that sound? Undefeated Rogers Mounties.
It's a good deal. It's a nice deal, but we still got a long way to go.
You guys had a big win, against Farmington, a team that's been pretty good, but kind of on the rise. Defense only held them to 3 points. How much pride do you guys take in that?
We take pride in our defense a lot because we like helping our offense. If defense has a good night, it's going to be an easy night for offense.
Now you guys kind of get a little week off this week, kind of got a chance to heal up a little bit, get ready for conference play. Looking forward to conference play. How do you feel like you guys stack up?
I feel like we're going to be pretty good against conference. I feel like we're going to be definitely the team to look out for.
Good deal. Appreciate that. Congratulations, by the way. This is DJ Dara, our Prep Rally Player of the Week this week. Congratulations, and good luck the rest of the season.
Thank you.
You bet. Our Prep Rally Program of the Week was the Bentonville Girls Cross Country Team, and Coach Randy Raymaker was here today to give us some information on his team, which recently won a big meet down in Texas. Here is Coach Raymaker. Talking with Randy Raymaker, the girls cross country coach at Bentonville. They are our Prep Rally Program of the Week. Coach, you guys are, pun intended, off and running this season.
We are off and running. We had our first meet. Well, we opened up a Shiloh Christian with a few people. So our first big meet was last week in Denton, Texas.
Yeah.
At the Mile Split Invitational. So
looked like some good competition down there. You got to be pleased with how your girls did winning that meet.
There is. I don't know if it's quite as big as last year, but Texas got a lot of teams and a lot of schools and a lot of competition, and so it's good to go down there and get pushed around. So early.
Yeah.
We got lightning delayed 3 times.
Oh, man.
But they ran well. They ran hard.
How do you keep them kind of, focused or whatever when you kind of have a delay like that? And you said a couple of delays. So.
We have a pretty rigid warm-up that takes about 45 minutes or so. So they did that thinking that was going to happen. Then you just kind of, improvise a bit and shorten it up a little bit and maybe do a few things to make sure they're ready. But some of them it's a mental game. at this stage of the ball game.
Coach, talk about some of your top runners. I know you've got several that are headed to the next level for sure.
3 I have today would be Haley Lowy, and she will go to some college next year and run. Devin and Everly. Devin's a senior also. She's an awesome soccer player, so she's probably going to go do the soccer product. And then Everly said she's a sophomore, so she's got a long ways to figure out things.
Good deal. So you guys are kind of how do you kind of ramp it up to get ready for conference and state, or does it matter, or do you?
I don't know if ramp up is the word for conference and state, because we're pushing hard right now.
Okay.
And so you can't push hard. You don't push hard all the way. We have to cut back, do things a little shorter, a little faster, a little less rest, those type of things, and that gets you more prepared for freshening up, quickening up. The key is you make sure they're healthy at the line.
Good, yeah.
All right. So that's a big thing at that time of the stage of the thing, because we'll run the gauntlet. We go to Lovejoy next week, which is in Texas again, which is a bigger meet, really, really big meet. And then we have a week of training through, and then we'll go to Chili Pepper, which is also, as you know, is a huge meet.
Right.
And then we'll have a pre-state meet in Lake Hamilton, and then run conference and state. So
good deal. Well, Coach, listen, congratulations on a big win to start the season, and good luck the rest of the way.
Thanks.
Our guest speaker today was Fitz Hill, Dr. Fitz Hill, a 12-year career with the University of Arkansas as a coach and as a recruiting coordinator. Coach Hill brought a great message today, and here is Coach Hill with his question and answer with our Matt Jones.
Hey, I want to ask you about growing up in Arkadelphia. I think a lot of times when people, I think about the book Friday Night Lights and the movie and the show and everything. Arkadelphia, I think, is about as close as you can get to that in the state of Arkansas.
No question. My whole life was impacted by John Outlaw, who was the head football coach. And when he came there, the coach that preceded him had kicked off about 40 or 50% of our football team, and they were just home. And Coach Outlaw 24-year-old guy, just graduated from UCA, came in, and he went into the projects and re-recruited everybody and told everybody had a clean slate, and nobody predicted us. And that guy changed our whole community, and we went from not a factor to winning the state championship. Coach John Thompson was the defensive coordinator. I think the only time in high school football that we were not scored on the entire time, and Coach Outlaw changed the whole life. But I saw what football would do to a community that was fractured. It brought everybody together, and Friday night was a big community huddle at Haygood Stadium, and there's nothing like winning a state championship. And to me, that's one of my greatest high school accolades.
You talking about the 87 team?
No, that was the 79 team.
Okay.
And I coached on the 87 team with Coach Outlaw. So after I got out, that was before I went into college coaching. But to play on the 79 team and to coach on the 87 team, that's football in Arkadelphia.
The 87 team, I think they finished top 25 nationally. A lot of people think they were maybe the best team until that Springdale 05 team came along.
In the USA Today, they were the top team. But that's just the talent that Coach Outlaw started before he went to Lufkin to recruit the whole community. And I got my pattern from him. For Coach Outlaw to put his arm around you, that's all you wanted. And I'm going to tell you how I knew football impacted discipline. He took up lunch money in our dining hall for cafeteria, never had a problem. So that's the power of a football coach in the schools. And when people, suspension, never. When you look, I'm telling you, when you start looking at the problems in our society today, I've been in prisons and detention facilities looking at the crisis that produce these teenage violence behavior. The number one common thread is elementary school suspension. So when we suspend elementary kids in these underserved communities, they do not have a chance to play ball, which is what I'm saying is why our numbers are down, because we have 300 kids right now in detention facilities in the state of Arkansas as teenagers, which had they had what they needed, had what Coach Outlaw gave me and gave many of them, because he went and got a few guys out of jail, and he said, hey, this is what you're going to do. And they became successful men because they had men to model. That's what Arkadelphia was about.
Interesting story about you, I think, and I didn't know this until this week. 1990, you're a GA at Arkansas. Tell me if I've got the timeline right.
That's correct.
You play Tulsa in the season opener. You're getting ready for Ole Miss, and you get called into the Gulf War.
On a Tuesday, sitting there breaking down film with Joe Pate, Lewis Campbell, Bill Johnson. And that's when I was back in the dorm at the time with Kelly and that's why, for Coach Richardson and the basketball guys, Todd Day, all of those guys, as I was in charge of the dorm. And that's why I tell you, that's why Lindsey used to always I had to make when he was sneaking out, but that was, I was just kidding. But from the standpoint of that changed my life going to Desert Storm. And I'm gonna tell you, Coach Brawls, I went up to his office, and that's, I lost my dad when I was 19. My mother had an aneurysm 6 weeks later, so I joined the ROTC to live. So I watched Ouachita, so I had no money. And so that was my way of saying, man, they were giving $200 a month. And so I was on my own, and I had a scholarship, but I had no other money. So I was working, I got ROTC. They said, you can get this $250. So I joined ROTC. Well, I didn't know I was going to be an officer. I never thought about going to combat because I was, after Coach Outlaw and then, Coach Benson, Buddy Bob Benson, all these guys, they changed my life. So I wanted to be a coach. And so when that happened, I go up and Coach Crow said, go up see Coach Brawls. So I go up and see Coach Brawls, and he said, hey, Fitz, I can make some calls and see if we can defer to after football season, and then you can go to the Persian Gulf. And I said, no, sir. I said, I made this commitment. I said, I signed up for this. I said, so I've been activated, so I'm gonna go. And I said, and I've been called, and I have a responsibility. I got the money then, it's not now later. Hey, they paid me now, and I gotta go pay them now. And probably the greatest sacrifice of service that hit my heart while I was there, because there were times I didn't think I was gonna come back. But I promised God, while I was out there one time, the scuds went off and the ATN was flying over our head. I said, God, if you just let me get back to the United States of America. I said, I promise you, whatever I do, all right, I'm gonna do it to the very best that I can do, and I promise you I'll never take another lazy step, because I realized how blessed we were to live in America, and I took that for granted until then. That was one of the reasons I ended up getting a doctorate, because I came back and a couple of GAs says, well, you can just take the class and drop it. I said, that's not what I promised God. I said, what's the highest degree you can get here? They said, well, you can get a doctorate here. I said, well, put my name on that, because that's a commitment I made to the Heavenly Father to get me back. And so I want to make sure I do that. So that was the inspiration, to make sure that I take advantage of every opportunity, that God would bless me with, to make sure that I would be able in a position to help others and impact others by the blessing that I had received.
And you're awarded a Bronze Star.
Yes, so yeah, one of the things I'm very, very proud of that I was awarded a Bronze Star, and you don't get that for serving yourself. That's the thing I'm proud of. You get that for serving others, and you can't get that. They say a person wrapped up in themselves make for a real small package. You when you give of others, when you give of yourself, God multiplies that. And so, to take my soldiers and to say, hey, this is what we have to do. And, I never forget the general came in, and I was running the company of Forward, and they said, who's in charge of this operation? And that all came because I hadn't slept in 2 or 3 days, and they said, that lieutenant over there is in charge of this and making sure these things happen, da-da-da-da-da. So that kind of happened, and making sure all the rashes, the trucks were moving, were taking place. And so it's something, when I feel stress here, and I think about stress back there, it ain't stress. It's just being uncomfortable and just a little bit inconvenient.
Gives you a different perspective on being a football coach.
And look, I've been fired. So I say, you rather be fired here than be over there. You know what I'm saying? It was interesting. I'm not going to say the coach that did it, but I had a couple letters during the 1990 season when things wasn't going here, and I think we were like 3-8. I had a couple coaches write. They said, you better off over there than y'all. Because that wasn't a good year in 1990 for Razorback football.
I want to ask you about 1992 as well, because you were in the room, or you were on the staff when you lose to the Citadel. And I think on the 20-year anniversary, you and I talked about this. You said that Coach Broyles came in and told all the assistants, don't leave, stay right here.
Actually, Coach Broyles came in and sent all the whole staff down to the dressing room. All right, so we were sitting up in our offices doing it, and Coach Broyles said, I want all the coaches to go to the dressing room and sit there until I tell y'all to come out. So, no, because he didn't want anybody talking to the media or anything. So all the coaches, he walked through, our Coach Broyles walked through the hall, and he said, all the coaches need to report to the dressing room down in the facility. So all of us went there, and we probably stood there. Nobody was talking. We probably stayed in that room for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Nobody knew what was going on, and we just all looking around at each other. But we were quarantined, you know that? we were in that deal, and so we all stayed there till he came in, and then I think he called Coach Kynes out, took him up, and then that's when he made the announcement, and then that's when we, started rolling. That was, like I said, man, in coaching, you learn to be fluid.
Mm-hmm. You've said, I've read before, that coaching is an addiction, and you said you're glad you got healed of that addiction.
Yeah, when you look at all the benefits that come with coaching, and, even the carnal side of us, when I look at, in 19, Coach Nutt blessed me. When I was a recruiting coordinator, assistant head coach, I was the highest paid recruiting coordinator in the SEC at that time. That was the deal. You know what that guy make today? So when I'm start looking at his salary, and I think I'm a pretty decent recruiter. I wouldn't mind if I could go out there right now, but I realize I have a greater calling on my life, and for that reason, I never thought I would be doing what I'm doing today. Because it's the sacrifice that from planting seeds. I realize I'm planting trees for shade I would never sit under. All right, so that's the sacrifice. Now, here's what I realized based on what I was telling you. I have a son that's 23. I have a son-in-law, played basketball here, Dustin Thomas, my son-in-law, that's 29. I have a grandson that's 4. I have another grandson that's 1. Well, the data tells me that if they don't make it to 45, that they will be a victim of homicides because homicide is the number one cause of death for black males age 1 to 44. So should I be, I love watching sports. I look at it analytically. I look at it on a regular basis on Saturdays, but that's not my inspiration. My inspiration is how can I disrupt this homicidal virus that's spreading through America to save lives, that can bring hope to the hopeless and give a vision to the visionless. That's how I've been healed, and I have to stay focused on that because I'm gonna tell you, last year I went down to watch LSU play Florida State, in New Orleans, and every now and then the carnality in my body feels that. I want that. And, I coaches, I remember when Mike Singletary, I had met him when I was head coach of San Jose State, and when he became the head coach of the 49ers, when I had conversations with him, at that point, I wanted to raise my kids in the South. I want those Southern values, and I wanted to be able to impact individuals in a way that will sustain lifelong after I'm gone. And, and every year in coaching, it's, we won this year, how we're gonna do next year, But the trees and the shades that we're planting, I'm hoping it's gonna make something better for others. And I'm not saying you can't do that in coaching, because there are coaches that do a tremendous job of clearing out paths and giving back and doing it. And I applaud them, and God bless them, and I'm grateful for them. I'm saying for me, I had to realize, I'm no longer in pursuit of that satisfaction based on what my recruiting ranking is or based on what my record is.
Let me ask you one more. I think you wrote your dissertation on lack of opportunities for minority coaches.
Correct.
I've seen you quoted in some different stories here recently about the Razorbacks. They've got an all-black defensive staff. I think the majority of their assistant coaches.
Yes.
Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, if you go back and look historically from the sociology of that, it's really about access, and that's what I shared. I was, as a coach of nearly 20 years, I saw this, and when I started doing the studies, I said feelings are not facts. Facts are facts. If you ever hear me quote something, it's not about how I feel, it's the facts to substantiate what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. So I did this study for 25 years, and I did my master's thesis on it at Northwestern, and I did my doctoral dissertation on it, and that's why I'm a numbers crunchers guy. And so when I looked at it, I was wondering why there are limited opportunities. Well, the opportunities are not based on qualification, they're based on access. And here's a point in case to explain that. And I can give you, that's why I wrote the book, and I got so many book companies calling me now to want me to follow up based on what's going on in our country, and I just said it's not time. I said the Holy Spirit will tell me when it's time to write the next book. But let's take in baseball, let's take Satchel Paige, okay? According to folklore and everything I know in Negro Baseball League, Satchel Paige was the greatest baseball player of all time. You know why he didn't get the chance to participate? Skin color, not qualification, all right? That's what I'm saying oftentimes, that when you look at Coach Pittman, and you have to say, Coach Pittman went out and he said he found the very best coaches that he could find, and he didn't exclude them based on their skin color. Historically, that has not been the case, all right? Because if you look and see why is that a factor, and here is a perfect scenario to understand that. Had Nick Saban been born black, he wouldn't be the head coach of Alabama. They said, why? Alabama's never hired a black coach. Now, Nick and Satchel are very similar. Satchel didn't get the opportunity based on skin color. Coach got the opportunity to prove his value. That's the exclusion. I say race dictates space. That's the exclusion factor that sometimes happened historically in our country. So when you see the inclusive measure, it's not affirmative action, it's inclusivity. So when you can sit there, but you need to be qualified, because here's what I love about sports, okay? Once you get the opportunity, hey, San Jose State gave me an opportunity, all right? Even though in my years I did better than my previous coaches, and I think here's a story that I use when people call that I understood the perception of qualification. And this is a story I think I write about this. Here's a story that I think will help bring home the point that I understood, and I thank God for the grace to understand that sometimes people perception is based on ignorance, not reality. And so you have to give people grace, and that's what I've been able to do. So in 2003, the best football team I had at San Jose State, we were really good, athletic. Probably had 8 guys going to the NFL. I mean, really good. We should have been bowl eligible. We lost 4 games. This is when I almost went into a crisis. We lost 4 games by a total of 11 points and lost all 4 of them in the last minute and a half. So I was that's why I don't have any hair today, okay? It stressed me out. But at the end of the year, a booster came up. He had been drinking. And he said, this is why what you asked me about the access to the coaches to being able on the defensive staff. He said, Fitz, he said, being a few of the boosters sitting over there, we were thinking you would have had more success on your staff had you had fewer African American coaches on your coaching staff. That's what he told me. And I said, I said, you really think that? Yeah, that's what we were talking. Well, he had a few drinks and he was comfortable. And I said, okay. I said, well, let me ask you this question. Because, I wasn't going to respond in an ugly manner because at that point I wouldn't have a chance to educate him. So I said, let me ask you this question. I said, do you realize what my record was the first 3 years versus the 3 coaches who preceded me? I said, no, I never looked at that. I said, I want you to go take a look at that. He said, well, why is that? I said, do you realize my record was better than the 2 white coaches in the first 3 years that preceded me? I said, what did you tell them at this meeting? I said, did you tell them they had too many white coaches? He said, I didn't think. I said, I just want to let you know what you have done is not fair to me. And if I did that, it wouldn't be fair to you. And I said, stereotypes and perceptions are not realities. But based on your cognitive experience of race, that's what you have judged me by. And I hope you won't do that anymore. And that was an education for him that I was allowed to give him, which I used that format to do.
Fitz, you've been great. We appreciate your time.
All right, appreciate it.
Thank you.
That was the Hogs Illustrated Sports Club luncheon today. We thank you for listening to this podcast, and we'll be back next week where we will have University of Arkansas longtime sports information director Kevin Trainer as a guest speaker. We look forward to having him address the luncheon. Thanks for listening to this podcast, and we'll catch you next week.
The proceeding has been a production of the Hogs Sports Network. Look for our daily podcasts on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. For more Razorbacks coverage, go to WholeHogSports.com or follow the Hogs Sports Network reporters on social media.